don't ever think it's too late to do anything. It's not. We all don't know how long we have left, but if we don't start, and the fact is, if you can find something that you believe in, or if you have a purpose or meaning in your life, it's going to add 7.5 years to your life.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, a global community of women in midlife. I'm here to tell you that it's your time now to rediscover what has always been inside of you and bring that out into the world. If you're wondering what's next, but don't know quite what that is, or if you feel a twinge in your heart telling you that you have so much more to do and so much more to offer, you're in the right place. Ask yourself, if not now, when? Do you want to leave your job, start your own business, take control of your health, reignite the passion in your marriage, write that book, or at least that first chapter? Transitions like this can be daunting, but through listening to my story and interviews with incredible women every week, I hope to inspire you to take action. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I hope, as you are listening to this, that you're doing well and are planning to enjoy the last few weeks of August. This past weekend felt a little bittersweet for me, I'm not going to lie. I'm imagining it is also for many of you. As we approach the middle of August, thoughts begin to turn to new beginnings, and usually as September approaches, I distinctly remember getting little butterflies in my stomach as the new school year approached. Filled with both anticipation and a bit of nervousness, questioning what will the new school year bring? How will I be received? We plan our new outfits, we shop for new books, and dream of what this new chapter will look like. I am reliving these feelings as I am helping my younger son get ready to start medical school in a few weeks. I am both overjoyed with happiness and so proud of him, but at the same time have a twinge in my heart that my youngest is now off to this new exciting chapter. I feel like holding on to him tight, making sure that he is safe and happy and secure, but I know I need to let go, and that makes me a little sad. I know many of you can relate to this, whether our kids are 12 or 25. That feeling when they leave the house gets us every time, doesn't it? I had another thought today. Why can't we, at any age, bring that feeling back into our lives? Why does age become a barrier to having that excitement for what we want to do next? I came across a great quote, which I'll share with you here, which kind of speaks to what I'm talking about. Here it goes. Take a break from being an adult. Can you remember wearing your new shoes on the first day of school? Playing hide and seek at dusk? Thinking everyone over 20 was really old? A million mosquito bites and sticky fingers? Pedaling your bike as fast as you could? Pillow fights? Goodnight kisses? I love that quote, and I hope that gets you thinking about your passions and how you can bring them both forward into your life now. I'm excited to be able to help you do just that. I'm also excited to share that I'm opening up a group coaching session for a maximum group of 10 women starting on October 17th for 6 weekly sessions. If you are thinking about one-on-one coaching but are not ready to commit to it fully, this is an opportunity for you. Through my group coaching program, not only is it more cost-effective, but it will allow you to connect and share common goals, struggles, hopes, and dreams with a small group of like-minded women, with me as your guide. Of course, my one-on-one program is ongoing and open to a few more clients, and I love that part of my practice, but everyone is different. If you feel more comfortable in a group setting, join my group coaching program. It's my time now. Email me at Kavita, at powerpurposeplay.ca and tell me why you think you would be a great candidate for this program. I'll be happy to give you further details on this. Remember, email me at Kavita at powerpurposeplay.ca. Enjoy this next episode of the podcast with Helen Hirsh Spence, who reminds us of the great potential of people, regardless of our age. Through her movement called Top 60 Over 60, Helen wants age to become aspirational in the 21st century. Enjoy this episode, my friend, and I'll see you at the end with the key takeaways. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, which is a global community of women in midlife. I'm also a certified life transitions and core energy coach, and my mission is to empower 1 million women in midlife worldwide to find their inner power and purpose, and to say with confidence, it's my time now. As part of this mission, I interview incredible women for this podcast who share their stories of reinvention and who will give you advice on how to make this next stage in life your best stage ever. This week, I have the honor of speaking with a woman who exemplifies that age has no boundaries and that if we set our intentions to do something, we can do it at any stage in our life. I welcome Helen Hirsh Spence today to the podcast. After 50 plus years in schools, Helen's curiosity and enthusiasm for learning has never waned. Using her educational leadership experience as a jumping off point, she became a newly minted social entrepreneur in her late 60s. She is now an age provocateur, a mindset shifter, a thought leader who speaks at events and conferences about the positives of aging and the inherent negatives of ageism. Helen created Top 60 Over 60, which is a niche age diversity consultancy to provide age equity tools and training to businesses and to support individuals who are seeking reinvention as they transition to their next stage of life with purpose, which is perfectly what I said in the beginning. So she understands the untapped potential of today's aging demographic and wants age to become aspirational in the 21st century. So thank you so much, Helen, for being a part of the podcast today. I really appreciate it and welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's always wonderful to meet like-minded people who are striving towards similar goals. So thank you for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes, I love what I just said about women, people who are seeking reinvention as they transition to their next stage. That's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. So Helen, you describe yourself as a later in life entrepreneur and a mindset shifter as well. And you really are, as I read in your bio, you're really dedicated to changing the narrative about aging. And before we get into that, I've been so impressed by your story, and I just wanted to, if you could share about your story and how you got to where you are today with our audience.
Sure. It's really simple. I started losing confidence and feeling irrelevant and invisible about 7 to 10 years ago, I'd say. And I didn't know what was coming over me because I had had so much experience in leadership roles where I know I always have exuded confidence, even though I don't feel it necessarily. That's one of those fake it until you make it kind of situations where I think you really have to always be who you want to be, even if you don't feel it at the time. And as I said, or you said in the introduction, I had spent many years as a student in school, but then I also was a headmistress, and I was a secondary school principal in the public system. And then I stopped working in my late 50s, which I think was way too young when I look back now, simply because I stopped because I was tired and I needed to sleep some more because of internalizing all of the kids' issues. That was nothing compared to what the parents bring to independent schools, which is where I was in my last incarnation. So I was just really tired. Mm-hmm. And I did a lot of not-for-profit work for about 10 years. I was chair of many different boards, and one of them was Jane Goodall, which was like a full-time job, being the board chair for several years and on the board as an exec member. But then I stopped, and I started realizing something's not right. And I realized that what I was experiencing was self-directed or internalized ageism. And what that is sort of, I had absorbed all the negative messages about getting older throughout my life, which at this point was into my mid-60s. And I started believing the fact that you couldn't teach an old dog new tricks, or that you lose your cognitive abilities once you hit a certain age. And unfortunately, I was feeling the results of that. And I realized through talking to many other people, they were feeling the same way, but nobody really attributed it to what the cause was, which was ageism. Mm-hmm. So I started doing research, and I'll abbreviate the story, but one of my former students, who I'm still in touch with, introduced me to the Center for Social Innovation in Toronto. And social entrepreneurship was something I'd never even heard of before. So I started taking courses and thought, what is it I really want to do? And I realized that it was tackle ageism. I mean, if I feel this way and I have lots of background that would support me feeling differently, what do other people experience? So I wanted to do it in a positive way. And I was getting annoyed at always reading about top 30 under 30, top 40 under 40. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I said, what about top 60 over 60? And my intention at the start was really just that, to create a platform where we celebrated older adults.
Right.
But I realized really quickly that it had to be more than that. So I'm back to where I started, in that I'm trying to find sponsors and whatnot, but that's a long story. In the interim, I've done other things too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a great story, and it kind of reminds me of my story as well, because there was a point where I was like, something is missing, or there's something that needs to change in my life. And it was around when I turned 50. So it's a little younger than you experienced it, but I also looked around and I found that women were in the same situation, but nobody was really talking about it as much. Is that we have such a great, I guess, our next stage in our life to do all the things we have still left to do. But because of the stereotypes that are ingrained in society, we begin to feel kind of invincible, right? So thank you for sharing the story. That's wonderful.
I have to say that I just to interrupt, I want to also point out that there wasn't as much research out there about longevity and how much longer we're going to live a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Now it's way more current. Sorry, when I say current, I mean there's more information out there, and people are beginning to absorb the fact that, 50 is not old.
Yes.
65 is an old retirement age, was something that was established in the 1930s. And we still adhere to a silly, silly time in our lives that has no bearing on current findings that we are living well into our late 90s and hundreds. So, I mean, the fact that a child born today has a 50-50 chance of having an average lifespan of 100 really changes the whole trajectory of lives. And we don't have to adhere to those milestones that were traditional, which I certainly internally absorb, such as you get married before you're 30, have children before you're 35.
Right.
It's all shifted.
What was that? Freedom 55, or
God, that is the most damaging but most profound marketing success story for an insurance company.
Yes.
Because it colored everything.
Right. Yeah. If I think about that, absolutely. I wanted to kind of ask you about a couple of things. So you had written an article recently, and I'm just you speak about the fact that the world is kind of on a precipice of a new revolution. And we're talking about that a little bit already, and then in the article you wrote, and I'll quote what you said here, is that those born between 1946 and the early 1960s were disruptors. Now they continue as age liberators who recognize it is their time to give back, or preferably give forward. So these 60, 70, and 80-year-olds are doing so by creating a movement where they are role modeling the growth, the power, the potential, and the value of aging. So I know we talked about it a little bit, but this whole concept of age liberation, Tell me a little bit about that.
So I borrowed from Becca Levy's novel, which is, I think, called Breaking the Age Code. She's a phenomenal researcher who's written a book recently. It just surfaced. So for any of your listeners, I would strongly recommend that they take a look at it. Mm-hmm. She makes reference to what as she calls the age liberation. And I'm just taking advantage of that because I've been thinking for the longest time, we need a movement just like the women's liberation in the 1960s and 70s, where it was all about equality or equity for women, mm-hmm. where we were doing things socially, economically, and yet not getting credit for it. There needs to be a wake-up call about the potential also of those of us who are older, because the future is older. We have a greater population of older people than we do of younger people. Mm-hmm. We have an aging society, and that's not going to change because we're not giving birth to as many children as we once did. And populations in developing countries is going down significantly. I mean, today we have more adults over the age of 65 than children under 14 in Canada. And that'll be the case in the United States within 2 years too. So already now we've got probably close to 45 to 50% of the population over the age of 50. Now, don't quote me because that's not totally accurate. My point being is that we've got a lot of individuals who are older. Yes. And so I just parallel it to the women's liberation movement. There needs to be an awareness about what the capacity is of those of us who are aging and stop relating it to what our grandparents were capable of, because it was a different time. There weren't the technological advances, the medical advances, the health and nutrition, mm-hmm. Knowledge about what's important. Everything is changing, and it's changing quite quickly. But if we don't want our children and grandchildren to have to go through what we're going through, just like our daughters, which I know you didn't have, but I had one, we don't want our daughters to suffer in the same way as we did by not having opportunity. We really need to address this now. And that's what I mean about giving it forward to future generations, opportunities. It's also going to be obvious. I think you can call me up and tell me if I'm wrong in the next 3 or 4 years for the general workforce, employers to understand that they need to take advantage of, retain their older workers or rehire older employees because they need them. They bring a wealth of experience as well as some expertise, depending on what the area of work is. But yes. They're trainable, and we all need to be trained and upskilled, or whatever you want to call it. We learn all the time now. That's the new normal.
Absolutely. And to that note, you created Top 60 over 60. And, if you could tell us a little bit about that, because I'm all about obviously reinvention at any age. And you created Top 60 over 60 for older Canadians, and to encourage them to reinvent themselves. That's and right. to really help them meet their new work and entrepreneurial challenges. So tell me a little bit about what is your mission and your vision with Top 60 over 60, because I think it's an amazing initiative. I mean, and I think that is fueling probably this movement that you really are referring to, right?
Right, mm-hmm. Right. So as I said, I started out thinking very narrowly about hosting events or program such as a Top 60 over 60. But I got sidelined because I realized how many people really needed the boost in confidence in order to propel themselves forward. So I created courses and programs for individuals as well as for businesses to help them overcome their ageist stereotypes. So for businesses, we work with training leadership groups to understand what the benefits are of retaining older adults and helping them work across the various ages in the workforce. Because today we have as many as 5 generations working together. And there are qualities and characteristics that are different, but there's more that they have in common. And yet we have all this cancel culture that puts up barriers and creates cultures of we versus them. So that's what we do with businesses. But then there are all these other people who also would require better understanding about what it is that they can still do today to give them the confidence and help them understand what those competencies are that everybody benefits from. So that's why I say it's a mindset shifting exercise. People really have to change the paradigm about who they are at this stage in their lives. And so what I've done is I've created programs, and by having them either in person or on Zoom, both have worked. They get to know that they're not alone. They get involved with the other people. When I was doing it in person, it was great. We'd go out for drinks and things afterwards. So friendships developed.
Yes.
And it was wonderful to see the change in attitude and a belief in oneself, which is, I really think the most important thing has to do with self-agency, self-confidence. And that's what's been taken away from us by the market, which caters to a youth-centric world.
Yes.
Instead of realizing that we're the ones who have 75% of the wealth today, marketers, advertisers are still catering to younger people without realizing that there's a tremendous potential. It's called a silver economy in taking advantage of some of the older generations. I try to avoid saying generations because it seems to have a tone of we versus them. As I say, it's my generation versus your generation. You're Gen X, I'm a boomer.
Yes.
It's practical and it's convenient to say and to use.
Right.
But it sets us up for our differences as opposed to our similarities. So I'm trying to learn to use mixed ages or age diverse vocabulary.
You mentioned cancel culture. What is that?
Oh, I was just reading an article that my son sent me. It really, I think what it is just canceling out the validity of what somebody else has to say from another, in this case, generation.
Yeah.
But it can be talking about racism or anything. It's just...
Right. So you're not only educating employers, you're also educating potential employees about the benefits of how much they have to, both sides have to gain from one another. Offer from another.
That's the basis of everything. I mean, I really believe in age equity. I may be advocating inadvertently more for older adults at this point, simply because I think they have been detrimentally affected because of ageism. And I know from the global report that was put out by the World Health Organization last year that 1 out of 2 persons globally has a negative bias against older people. So that's huge. So 1 out of 2 people doesn't believe in older people or the value of older people or the fact that they can contribute. Yes. And there are huge negative health and both impacts, both physical and mental. And they are damaging and they're causing us problems that we're not even aware of in terms of healthcare costs or, and just by denying older people the potential that they have to contribute meaningfully is hugely detrimental to us as a society, not to mention economically.
Well, I mean, is it, in your opinion, is it changing somewhat, or has it...
It's moving. The needle's moving very slowly, but I can't believe how slow it is. I just read an article too by another colleague who pointed out that there was a really predominantly ageist article that was in a journal that has to do with longevity. So it more or less interfered with what the message was. So there's so much awareness that needs to be raised about how age bias, what it looks like, to tell you the truth. Yes. For an example, when interacting with older people, perhaps in care homes and whatnot, when you disempower them by talking to them as if they were children, which is often the case, infantilizing older people by saying, "So is your tummy talking today? Are you ready for dinner? Should we go and have dinner now?" Things like that. It's called elder speak.
Yes.
And what it does is ultimately the mental internalization of those kind of messages affects those person to such an extent that it diminishes their own worth and they don't believe in themselves anymore. There's so many studies that are done now on that. You wouldn't have thought of it. And the intentions may be good. Yes. But the damage is huge.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I also hear so much. I hear it's a common theme amongst some of my clients who say that after a certain age, midlife or whatever, they begin to feel invincible. Or they begin to feel as though they're fading into the background just because of what, some of the things you discussed, whether it's marketing or society or just so many different reasons. And where indeed this should be a time where we flourish, right? And so, I mean, maybe you can just say, if you're talking to a woman who's listening to this podcast, like, what would be your advice to women who feel this way, or people generally who feel this way, that, oh, I'm fading into the background and I'm not important anymore? Or what do you tell your clients, for example?
What I tend to do is I talk about the different competencies that people have and the competencies that they need in order to flourish moving forward. And those would be the things like problem solving and decision making and spotting opportunity, and doing everything through a lens of aging, so that they understand that their perspective is different, but valid and valuable, even more so. So all the research shows that experience trumps knowledge and skill. We can learn almost anything if we want to. Of course, only to a certain degree, depending on all sorts of variables. But the reality is, as we age, our brain has developed something that's called crystallized intelligence, which means that we may not process quite as quickly as we did when we were young, when we had fluid intelligence, but that actually peaks at age 30. And from that point on, you become more crystallized. And that's sort of, if you can imagine, instead of having a dirt road, you've got highways interconnecting. Yes. And that's what experience enables you to see and do, which you can't obviously when you're younger, because you don't have that experience. So you have to recognize that that's what's happening, and that you still can learn, and you still have, but what you have to do is you really have to move out of your comfort zone. Stop doing things as rituals and regain your confidence by doing or entering into spaces that you're not used to. It can be as simple as making a point of going to the supermarket a different route, but make those kinds of pathways, create new pathways so that you can open up your viewpoint and your perspective. And I really think, so my mantra would be get out of your comfort zone. Every year I try to do at least one thing that's way out of my comfort zone. And I've done that for years. I haven't been able to as much in COVID. But what I've done during COVID is all of this social entrepreneurship, starting up a business or trying to get up subscribers to our newsletter, which we provide free, or credibility, or thought leadership, writing articles. All of that is very foreign to me. I mean, just being on social media was such a huge obstacle for me to overcome that it was like 2 years before I ever put anything out there. But I realized I had to. But I'm just saying, I think that's absolutely one of the most important things that people can do. Yes. Is make a point of moving out of their comfort zone.
Yes. I talk about that practically every week, because, and that what you just said actually leads right into my next question, is about the challenges that we face. And we face them at any stage in our life, and without the confidence to overcome those challenges, it's very difficult. And what you said is exactly right, is that in order to gain self-confidence, you have to get out of the comfort zone. You have to just take the first step, and then the next steps follow, right? But tell me a little bit, you mentioned a little bit about, for example, social media, but what other kind of challenges did you face as you decided after retirement, quote unquote, to become a social entrepreneur? What were some of the other challenges that you faced?
Everything was a challenge.
Yeah.
Everything. I mean, if you think that I was an educator in systems where I had other people who were perhaps covering for me at an upper level, whether it was a board of trustees or whatever, starting up my own business was a mammoth undertaking. I had to understand what was involved: business plans, insurance, domain names, URLs, service providers, absolutely everything. That's fundamental, perhaps to somebody who's younger, who's starting out, was totally new to me. But as I say, one of the biggest challenges is promoting myself and talking about myself. I mean, I grew up at a time, so I'll be 73 next month. I grew up at a time where you didn't talk about yourself or brag. What you did is you demonstrated through your behavior and your actions who you were, right? We didn't have social media or anything like that. I mean, unheard of. And so to say, I think I'm good at this or that, was foreign to me.
Yes.
And when somebody was working with me at the start as a volunteer, she was in between jobs, but she was a communications expert. She'd say, Helen, get over it. You've got to put yourself out there or else forget about it. You can't be a success without being on these different platforms.
Yeah.
So that too has been, learning that. There's just been endless challenges, Kavita.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many.
Yes.
Every day there's another one.
Yeah.
But I see it as an opportunity to learn. It's like a self-directed master's in business program.
I love that.
I won't get a degree at the end of it.
Oh, well, you've gotten a lot more than that, I think. As I said, I love that because it's so true. I mean, I also started a business after being in corporate for so long. And everything is, when you're in a corporate world, or in your case, education, everything is kind of done for you. And now as an entrepreneur, as like you said, everything you have to do yourself, and it's challenging, but it's rewarding. But yes, I agree with you. Being visible is challenging. It's not easy for a lot of people. And sometimes we think, oh, we have to do more and more and more. And we see other people and we think, oh my God. But I would say that whatever we do that feels good, that feels right, and that we feel like we're doing the best we can, then that's the right thing to do. So I think...
I don't think it's ever enough in today's world. That's what it seems like. There's such proliferation of different platforms, and it's impossible to stay on top of everything. So I feel that as a pressure as opposed to other pressures that I used to feel, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So,
I truly believe that if we have a mission and a vision for our message, then it's going to come across regardless. So I think that's why I continue to do what I do. But I think the key, as you mentioned earlier, is for us to also share the fact that we need our self-confidence. And the only way to get there, based on your experience and mine, is to take that step. And we'll figure it out as we move along, right?
And finding other, perhaps people such as you and me connecting and supporting one another. I really find that has been invaluable too, through COVID, especially when we resorted to online programming and so on. And it just opened up a new world. So I really see that it was beneficial in many ways.
Absolutely.
For me, because I would not have perhaps accessed this platform. Again, great new learning. And honestly, I think that probably the best way to do all of these things would be to join forces with somebody from a younger age group who's more familiar with it than we are. And that would be a recipe for huge success. Like I'm really an advocate of intergenerational mixed age collaboration because I think it's so powerful and so underutilized.
Yes, absolutely. Especially within organizations, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. But even as entrepreneurs, I mean, if you have mixed ages, it's so strong. It's such a powerful it has such potential.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with what you just said also about, I think it's really the power of community and being amongst people who are going through similar things. And if we can talk to each other and learn from one another. This is why I did create a Power Purpose Play. This is why you created Top 60 Over 60, I'm imagining, is because we have the power of community and common issues, common goals. And if we're able to talk about them and learn from one another, that's how we're going to move forward. So
that's right.
That's wonderful. So there is something that you talk about or you use in your business called
emergenetics.
I'm not saying this right. Emergenetics, yes. Yeah. And it's a tool to increase awareness of self and others. So can you, if you don't mind, if you can explain that a little bit, I'm very curious to learn a little bit more.
Hi, my friend. Kavita here. Do you often feel blocked from moving forward? We all feel that way at times. These are referred to as energy blocks. I've created a short, actionable PDF guide to help you release your negative energy blocks. Click the link in the description to download it now for free. Now, let's get back to the episode.
So, first of all, I just want to say that what's foundational to everything that we do, as far as I'm concerned, especially at our ages, whatever they are, midlife and so on and beyond, is self-awareness. So it's so critical to understanding other people and where we want to go. So, I mean, I was looking at a variety of different psychometric tools. Everybody knows about Myers-Briggs, and then there's DISC, and there are other things as well. Somehow I found what's referred to as emergenetics. And it's what I love about it is, and I was trained in it, and, I went to wherever it was that I went in Toronto at the time when you could go to actual classes. This was in 2015. It has everything to do with behavioral preferences and thinking preferences. What I like about it is the fact that it doesn't label your style. For instance, it doesn't say that you're a leader or a motivator or a manager or what, which so many of these tools do. And then you sort of get stuck there. What it talks about is your preferences. And that is such a powerful understanding. So there are 4 different thinking preferences and 3 different behavioral preferences. And when you combine those, you get a really wonderful, fulsome evaluation of your preferences. And what's even more dynamic is, I did workshops, full day workshops with businesses, or this is all pre-COVID, right? You can do it online too. And I have done it online, but it was great for retreats, for corporates and whatnot, because the team dynamic, and for the first time, you'll understand why Joseph over there never understands what you're trying to say to him. But what this tool does also is it provides you with tips and in which you can approach Joseph, because once you understand what your profile is and you share it with other team members, you can see what the advantage is to working together and the different strengths that you have that you can put together in wonderful combinations and permutations. Nice. And so that's what I really enjoy about it. So you can use it for coaching. I've used it with families for family dynamics. I mean, it's fascinating. And the way in which it's framed is that we can all learn or do anything we want to do. And this is what I know through learning it as well, is that, however, if you can get somebody in the modality that they're most comfortable in up front, it'll go a lot faster. And then you can introduce other things. So it's got an app. Anyway, if you're interested, I'd gladly talk more about it. But I use it as much as possible with everybody that I work with, because it's an outstanding tool.
I like the fact that it doesn't label, like you said, it doesn't label you as one person, one type of person or the other. And
right.
That's fascinating. And that's similar to something that I'm trained in called the Energy Leadership Index Assessment. Okay. And that's an attitudinal assessment. And I like the emergenetics. It doesn't label people. It actually determines what kind of energy or how do you relate to times of stress and also in regular times, and how you can understand how a person may be there's 7 levels of energy. So I can, maybe somebody is on level 1, which is really angry or blaming all the time, versus somebody who's maybe a positive energy called anabolic energy, level 7, who is a cooperator and sees things as we all win. So it's similar in that, and that's why I really like it. So I use that tool, and it sounds like might be similar in terms of the outcomes. So thanks for sharing that. And you use that in your training as well, or?
As much as I can. Yeah. There is a cost to it, of course. So depending on what kind of a program that I'm offering, as I say, can't always use it. But honestly, it provides the foundation that really helps people to soar. So
fantastic. Yeah. And so tell me how, if things are going with Top 60 over 60, and what are some of, maybe you mentioned earlier, you're on some other initiatives that you're doing, and maybe you're not slowing down, you're ramping right up. So tell us what's next, and what you're a little bit more about what you're doing now and in the future.
Well, I'm continuing to do a lot of speaking engagements and working with different companies and trying to help them understand the value, as I say, of their mixed age workforce and helping them benefit from that. But I've also been holding conversations, which I call We Need to Talk. And that's different generations talking together about the challenges and the perspectives of aging and how they can how it impacts who they are and what they do. And that's one thing.
That's
and then
fantastic. Is that like, are they live conversations?
Live conversations. Yeah, okay. I have a subscription series to that. Yeah, nice. It's called We Need to Talk. And I'd gladly give it to you if
well, you can certainly send the link, give me the link, and I'll put it in the show notes so people can.
Sure, that would be great.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing that I've been doing is I've been hosting these sessions in the last little while about age liberation and putting together a core group of people who want to perhaps work together on getting the same core messages out about aging. As some people want to work specifically on the workforce, others are more interested in just general sharing of information of what aging is living and the alternative is death, things like that. And I'm calling it age liberation. And we're working towards really trying to get a movement, collaborate among many different groups that are doing similar things and trying to align them in such a way that maybe we can, in a year or so, put something together that's not just virtual, but also in person. So October 1st is International Day of Older Persons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's a day for everything. Okay.
There's a day for everything. You're right. Yeah. So we thought we'd try to put some kind of communication strategy together for that and then keep moving on. Got lots of ideas about doing things in person too. I happen to be in Ottawa, so I would love to go to Parliament with a placard and say, stop disregarding me because of my age, things like that. But I have a whole bunch of other ideas, and art is another way in which we can promote it. It's just, there's so many different ways that we have to raise awareness and educate people about what it means to get old. And we have to start at a very, very young age. And that is before age 4, because already at age 4, children have a negative attitude towards getting older.
That is so true. I never really thought of that. You're so right. Starting from the books that we read.
That's right. Think about
the preschool books.
Think about all the witches. Who are they?
Yes.
They're all older ladies. The men are wizards. The women are witches, right?
You're so right. You're so right.
There's so much to be done.
There's a lot. Well, I mean, just by you being here today and speaking about this and getting the word out, I applaud you for all the amazing work that you are doing, and just it's such an important thing, and I can't stress enough how much we can learn from one another, and like you said, it can go both ways. It can be younger people and older people, because we have the experience, and then we can learn from how to get on social media and all these things from younger kids. And so I really appreciate all the pearls and all your knowledge about this topic, and kudos to you for all that you're doing, and congratulations.
And to you too. Look at what you're doing. I mean, it's great promoting all of these wonderful speakers that you engage. It's terrific.
Well, I learn every week, so it's a little selfish too, but
okay. We all have to learn all the time. But I just wanted to add that the example you just gave with social media. Interestingly, older people are extremely tech savvy, a lot tech savvier than we think, and so that's one of those huge myths.
Yes,
they're over 75% of people over the age of 75, 80 that use technology.
Yeah. Well, it's just as like my dad, my dad is 89, and he's like very active on, I'm actually really, really happy for him. And he loves it. So I think it's absolutely a stereotype for sure. So
it is. There's so many.
Any last thing that you'd want to maybe end off with, Helen, as we end off the conversation? Or
the only thing I can think of is that don't ever think it's too late to do anything.
Yep.
It's not.
Yep.
We all don't know how long we have left, but if we don't start, and the fact is, if you can find something that you believe in, or if you have a purpose or meaning in your life, it's going to add 7.5 years to your life if you're healthy.
That sounds like a researched backup there.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Wow.
It is. Yes. Yeah. Just thinking positively about getting older has got a huge impact on even those who are genetically inclined to get dementia, for moderating it and stuff. There's a lot new research out, and it's so hopeful.
Yeah.
So believe it. Yes. Think positively about getting older.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Helen, for being here. And good luck to you. And we'll have all your links and everything on in our show notes so people can look up this Top 60 Over 60 and all of the great initiatives that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I trust you enjoyed this interview with Helen and believe in the untapped potential of people, regardless of their age. As Helen so rightly says, don't ever think it's too late to do anything. It's just not. Here are her key takeaways. Number 1, people are beginning to realize that 50 is not old. Retirement age is something that was established in the 1930s, and we still adhere to this belief, which has no bearing on our current findings. Number 2, a child born today has a 50-50 chance of having an average lifespan of 100, and that really changes the whole trajectory of lives. Number 3, there needs to be an awareness of the capacity of those of us who are aging, and stop relating it to our grandparents' era, because it's a different time. Everything is changing, and it's changing quite quickly. 4, employers need to retain their older workers or rehire older employees because they bring a wealth of experience and expertise. They are trainable. 5, it's about a change in attitude and a belief in oneself. Confidence has been eroded by the market, which caters to a youth-centric world. Instead of realizing that we are the ones that have 75% of the wealth today, marketers are still catering to younger people. There is tremendous potential in the silver economy. Number 6, experience trumps knowledge and skill. We can learn almost anything if we want to. Our brain has developed crystallized intelligence. We may not process as quickly when we were young, when we had fluid intelligence, but that peaks at age 30, and from that point on, it is crystallized. Instead of a dirt road, there are highways interconnected, and experience enables you to see and do. Number 7, there are so many different ways that we have to raise awareness and educate people about what it means to get old, and we have to start at a very young age. As early as age 4, where children already have a negative attitude towards getting older. Older men are portrayed as wizards, whereas older women are witches. 8, don't ever think it's too late to do anything. It's not. We all don't know how long we have left, but if you can find something that you believe in, it can add 7.5 years to your life. Thank you for listening and subscribing to this podcast. The only way we can expand and grow to more people is through your comments and feedback. I'd love to hear how this podcast has benefited your life. Drop me a line at kavita@powerpurposeplay.ca. Remember also that my group coaching program is starting in the fall, and I'm taking names of those interested now. If you don't know if this program is right for you, reach out to me at kavita@powerpurposeplay.ca, and I can give you all the details. Remember, my friend, how did it feel to wear those new shoes on the first day of school? Can you bring that feeling back into now? Good luck to all your beautiful children as they embark on new adventures, and reach out to me if you want to uncover yours. Till next week, stay safe and stay well.